At SXM, we're taking travel and tourism to new heights. Here we boast spacious check-in areas, 10 passport control points, comfortable departure lounges, and an exciting new airport mall. Finally, there's an airport in the Caribbean that takes your travel plans as seriously as you do. Princess Juliana International Airport. The experience will move you.
Welcome to the Late Night Show. Hope everything is okay. Hope everything is all right. I'm your host, Andrew Day. Okie dokie, kids, what's happening on the lovely island of St. Martin? We begin. We had a long time off because, Easter is a real thing, and sometimes you just need to, husa and just, bring it back. So we took some time off. We will continue to take some time off for tomorrow and Friday because we will be coming to you from the Festival Village starting next week.
Yo! Great Music Studios. I ain't going home till they play my song. I say I ain't going home till the last truck gone. I got my
I'm excited. Yes, I'm going to be in the Carnival Village all month. Well, 3 weeks at least. Well, no, it's a whole 4 weeks. Damn it. Yeah. April got 5 weeks. Rough. But yes, we will be in the Festival Village, broadcasting from there. The whole Shucks team's going to be there. Shucks. So make sure, say hello. We won't tell you where he is, but, you could say hello when we're in the village. Anyway, back to what's happening on St. Martin. I had to come on because there were certain things that we had to put into perspective, and certain things that we have to let you know what is happening. Of course, the screening process still continues. We continue to wait. However, some interesting information has arisen, has arisen, come up. So, Gracita Arenal, remember our Deputy Minister of Plenipotentiary candidate, is set or was requested to take on the mantle of Prime Minister in the absence of Luc Mercelina, who wants to stick to Parliament because he wants to keep his surgery job. So, Gracita Arenal being the Prime Minister with, let me try to remember, I have it here on a paper. I'm horrible at cheating because my eyes so old. 88 votes. I run the next election. If I could become Prime Minister St. Martin with 88 votes, I'm running the next election. Prime Minister Dick, get out of the way. But there is a protest that is happening within USM. Of course, because USM is for the people, for themselves. No, the people. No, for themselves. The people, for themselves. No, the people. No, for themselves. I don't know. You decide. Chris Weaver, the deputy leader of the USM, is upset.
Put me first. I gotta put me first. I gotta put me first.
Chris Weaver received, get ready for it now, 96 votes. So somebody who received 88 and the person who received 98 votes is upset because they say they want to be Prime Minister. Persons who receive under 100 votes fighting for Prime Minister of this country. What's what a 2x4 doing to us these days? Imagine the Prime Minister's going to be there, whoever it is, and is going to say, out of 14, 15, 16, 22,000 voters, 55 or 88 or 98, less than 100 people voted for me, and I represent St. Martin. How much percent is that? 0.4? 0.3? The Martin, right? I hope this is one of those dumb rumors, because I don't know what to get more upset about. The fact that Gracita Arenal, who received less than 80 votes, well, just about over 80, is going to be the Prime Minister, or that Chris Weaver, who received 90-something votes, and said, no, you only received 80-something. I get 90-something, and I's the deputy leader, so put me as the Prime Minister. This is what we come to St. Martin? Oh, you think it's done? No, it ain't done yet. Reginald Bruch, remember him?
I suffered here with the people of St. Martin, but I've never, ever experienced what I've experienced the last 4 years.
How many votes do you think Reginald Bruch received on the URSM list? I'll tell you. You know what, Pete? Just put it up, because I give up on that paper. Pete, just put it up, and that is the amount that he received. You see, it's far more than 80-something or 90-something. And are you still skipping the black boy? Man, Messalina, get the whip. This is ridiculous. Listen, if the meeting had to go on between URSM, and I could imagine, yeah, I received 80-something votes, I'm more qualified, I have more experience than you, Chris Weaver. Yeah, but I received 90-something and I was minister for 5 minutes, so therefore, I'm supposed to be Prime Minister. And Bruch just there sitting down like, I almost get in though. He almost had it. And the thing is, how many times, you know how they say, you remember they had a commercial back in the day, like how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll?
Mr. Turtle, how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop?
I never made it without biting. Ask Mr. Owl.
Mr. Owl, how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop?
Let's find out. 1, 2, 3.
How many times you have to get screwed, Richanel? Because Veronica take your job already. She gonna be the minister of VSR. You wanted that. They said, no, black boy, you go in parliament. He's like, no, I want to be minister. No, black boy, parliament. Richanel like, okay. Oh, you know what? We're gonna look for somebody for prime minister. Who do we need to look for to get prime minister? Richard, sorry. Move. Get out of the way. Gracita, what are you saying? Go, Chris, you two. Okay, so we have 2 candidates. Richard, tally them. And get us some water. And then, that's not the worst part. And this goes to show you that there's systematic racism in the URSM. I don't care what nobody say. Come and call me out about it and I shall defend it. Because remember Julian Rolox? How many votes he get? Did he get more than Veronica Janssen? Did he get more than Chris Weaver? Did he get more than Gracita Arenel? Pete, show how much votes he received. So we're going to skip out on the two black boys. And we're going to make sure we fight for things we ain't supposed to fight about. Okay, I'm done with that. I just wanted to give you that insight. I hope it's not true. I hope it's one of those rumor things. I hope it's just something that we're just talking about. It's the rumor of the week. And then we can move on from there. Right? Right. Are you okay after the Golden Gorilla? Are you okay? Are you okay? Now, of course, I think I need to go down there to do some investigation because I need to see what the situation is like. So I think I need to, Kimbe, if you're there, just, message me and maybe you could set up a tour, late night could tour the Golden Gorilla. And I think it's so smart that they didn't mention the location because now everybody looking. Remember how they had a song Looking for Randy? Well, they're looking for the Golden Gorilla. And of course, one of our viral videos that went viral, that's hence the reason why it's a viral video. Melissa Gomes, her facial reactions. Oh, you know what I want? Pete, give me the reaction of the good MP after I say the following. Hey, so Melissa, you want to check out the Golden Gorilla? No. Okay. I just checking. I just checking. Silveria, you want to check out? You want to check out the Golden Gorilla? You see how you could use Melissa reaction for everything? The face is priceless. I love it. I love it. All right. Welcome to the Late Night Show. We have a good one for you. When we come back, we got highlights of the 2024 budget debate 2024. Welcome. Sit back, relax. We're here.
How are you?
Hi, darling. I'm fine. Just calling to say hi.
Oh, okay. We got over here.
Girl, I hear watching this movie and it.
But Mom, you finished all your minutes yet?
No, girl. Talem has new postpaid plans and automatically upgraded my postpaid package.
Is that so?
Guess what? I am getting more minutes and almost double the amount of data for the same price.
I guess I'm making a switch now.
Let me call you back, Mom.
Hey Tash, you have Telem new postpaid plans?
All right, the 2024 budget was passed last week after 7 hours, the final day. Before that, it was more. There was some crazy moments that happened for the meeting. Let's sit back, relax, and, it's going to take us on this wonderful journey of what we call adults in Parliament, because it was good. It was good.
I think the minister may have sensed me coming for his inclusion of U.S. preclearance in his Central Committee presentation, because I see in the one received today that it is not really prevalent. I was going to ask why it was included in the first place when the State Department itself told the Prime Minister that for the foreseeable future, it's off the table. But it was taken out, so I'll bypass my question on that point and go instead to the minister's notes on environmental conservation, beach access, and safety. And this is something that I think we've talked about almost to exhaustion here in Parliament and in the various committees of Parliament. But how do the Ministry of Tats policies, which again are highlighted here on these points, coincide with the Ministry of Rami and their issuance of rental agreements on, for example, our beaches? Over the last few weeks, there's been the very careful and piece-by-piece placement of a new container on Mullet Bay Beach, for example. And as of Sunday, March 24th, we now see it has evolved to varnished wooden chairs being placed in front of what, albeit, is a very stylish container. When you look at Mullet Bay now, for locals who maybe do not want to pay for chairs or who enjoy carrying load to the beach, they're usually at the back, under the trees that they can be under. I myself has witnessed with businesses on Mullet Bay telling people they cannot set up chairs and umbrellas and even volleyball nets in areas that are outside the square meterage in the rental agreements issued to them. So how have these two ministries, after this time, and I know, Minister, you're like the third, fourth Minteat that we've had, worked together to regulate these encroachments on local access to the beaches? And for the Ministry of Rami, Madam Chair Lady, I asked most of my questions during the Central Committee, but perusing the answers that we received from government in writing has brought up just a few more. Firstly, and most importantly, since the knowledge of the Didam arrest, have there been any new issuances of long lease land by this outgoing minister? This would have gone against the conditions set forth by that verdict to begin with, Madam Chair Lady, and some might argue that any advice for new issuance coming from domain that is positive would automatically be against those same conditions as well. So I'm curious to hear the answer, particularly because the verdict stated that a policy for issuing land, something this faction has hammered on since 2020, must first be established and put into force before issuances continue. Is the minister going to be personally held responsible for issuances given out in contradiction to the verdict? Remains to be seen. One of my primary concerns as well, Madam Chair, when it comes to the Ministry of Rami, has always been consistency and the ability to properly execute projects under the principles of good governance and management. When we look at the capital expenditures plan for wastewater solutions, etc., I know residents are looking forward to this, but I would like the minister to outline what, if any, measures have been discussed or implemented to prevent what happened in Dutch Quarter from happening again with that EU-funded project, just to be clear. One answer provided between actually finance and Vrami, Madam Chair Lady, was slightly contradictory. So in one part of the budget, 17 million guilders has been allocated for a wastewater treatment facility in the K-Bay area. But in the answers to questions asked about sewage issues, etc., it then says that the 17 million will focus mainly on, yes, that wastewater plant, but also expansion in network and house connections in areas where there are existing sewage lines, and also the upgrading of the sewage plant located at Etielid Road. So I just want to know which is it, and if it is both, how is that 17 million divided? Beyond that 17 million gallon wastewater treatment plant in Quevedo, there should be some consideration given to future developments and whether developments are paying their fair share for the strain brought onto our infrastructure. And that is what I was missing when the minister came to Parliament in January 2023 to present a spatial development strategy and plan, a policy which he admitted is not binding in the first instance, but also not one where fees are being considered for that infrastructural strain. So I just want to know if that has been discussed at all since that time of that strategy being presented. And my final comment, Madam Chair Lady, regarding the so-called Landsverordening VRAMI, National Ordinance VRAMI, which in the answers is explained as an umbrella ordinance under which all other ordinances and other legislative pieces will fall that are related to VRAMI. This, to my recollection, has been in the works for more than a year and change now. But to my knowledge, nothing has yet been sent to the Council of Advice, so if the Minister could update Parliament as to what stage in the legislative process this particular piece is at, so the incoming Minister can know what awaits them. And lastly, for General Affairs, so Madam Chair Lady, as the last presenter today, I just want to thank the Prime Minister as well for her presentation. And before I get into my remarks, I just want to touch on something that the Prime Minister mentioned regarding resilience and how persons are tired of hearing that word. There is a reason for that exhaustion, and to explain that, I just want to quote from a 2022 thought piece by a young St. Martin student currently doing her master's study in political science. The resilience mindset is a mindset that has taken a new form after Hurricanes Irma and Maria and exacerbated due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The idea of the island being a resilient people has been the response when we question why certain systems aren't put in place or why we aren't making efforts to improve the systems. Resilience is a term used for people who have to deal with circumstances that are seen as undesirable by many. To the global community, what we are going through fits that lens. As a society, we praise people for living through, not overcoming tough circumstances. Scholars see this as a policy and a scholarly issue. Cannon and Mueller-Mann state the notion of resilience, whether derived from natural ecosystems or technological usage, is dangerous because it is removing the inherently power-related connotation of vulnerability and is capable of doing the same to the process of adaptation. What this boils down to is that the resilience mindset keeps people in survival mode and never sees them evolve to a state of overcoming their reality. And governments play a big role in whether or not that evolution takes place and people move from resilience to actually thriving. For my remarks on the answers received, Madam Chair Lady, and the presentations repeated here today, I have to say in reading the answers, I was a bit flabbergasted by the response received from GEBE to the questions and statements made in Central Committee regarding the current grid market MOU between the country and grid market. The response they gave was GB is not a party to the government and grid market MOU. Therefore, GB has not entered into a partnership or consulting agreement with grid market. But when the Prime Minister announces an engagement like grid market with a specific task of plotting a roadmap for the country's renewable energy journey, I know the population, like myself, assumed that GB was party to this as the only company with a concession to generate electricity for the country. So it makes sense that they would be the company that would be following the roadmap developed by grid market. And then in Central Committee, I asked, is it essentially the same trajectory that we're developing an energy roadmap for the country? And the comfort I got from that was that, yes, that's essentially it. But then GB kind of counteracts that by saying that they're pursuing the NRPB track, and then government is pursuing the grid market track. So I just want to know which one is it, and was GB involved in the discussions leading up to and after the signing of the MOU with grid market? Because from what I read in their response, it's like a no. And then I have a question through you, Madam Chair Lady, for the Prime Minister regarding the COLA adjustment that was highlighted right before the start of campaign. It was mentioned by the Minister of Finance that the legislation to justify this adjustment was done, but when you, Madam Chair Lady, actually stated that we hadn't seen anything in Parliament, I believe the Minister said the Prime Minister would verify its status. Could not find that verification or documentation received, so if the Prime Minister could provide it in this meeting, that would be much appreciated. And finally, Madam Chair Lady, and this is just a comment I make because P&O falls under the responsibility of General Affairs. My colleague, MP De Weaver, asked for some critical information from each ministry, namely the leavers and joiners data when it came to employees. Most did not provide the information, whether they have it or not, or did not provide it accurately, and I think MP De Weaver will expand on that a bit when she takes the floor. A former MP, now outgoing minister and soon to be full-time MP, infamously said in this hall in 2020 that data don't matter when XYZ is happening. It took quite some time for this government to realize that data does in fact matter, and it is actually very often the only thing that matters. Not having on-the-spot data regarding leavers and joiners of an organization makes me wonder if government is actually doing exit interviews for when people leave to be able to keep proper track. And it doesn't help to just keep track of bodies in the building. It helps keep track of devices, access cards, and other items that should be returned. In my previous job, for example, after the former Prime Minister famously shut off postpaid cell phones from government, I encountered someone who had left government in 2012, but in 2018, his bill was still being paid by government. But aside from identifying possible leakage of funds, the primary purpose of exit interviews and proper HR practices by actual HR professionals can identify trends in personnel behavior and productivity, and that helps with accurate budgeting for personnel. So fixing these data gaps will hopefully be a priority for the incoming government.
Madam Chair Lady, I just have questions for 3 ministers today. You're one, yes? Starting with you, Minister of Finance. Yes, 3 ministers, just a few questions, actually some clarifications based on the final report that we received. And of course, yes, I will be starting with the Minister of Finance and Madam Chair Lady with regards to the cadastre, mainly that. I've listened to the Minister of Finance during the Central Committee meeting and read his answers in the report. I want to remind the Minister, through you, Madam Chair Lady, that of that letter I sent via the Chair on July 5th, 2023, stating my serious concerns about the financial viability of the cadastre and the aforementioned handling of the organization by the Minister and Supervisory Board. I have the letter here. Well, yes, I have it. I have it with me printed. The reference of that letter is UV/204/2022-2023. And I don't recall receiving ever a response to that letter. And Madam Chair, based on that and the answers provided by the Minister during the question hour, as well as the information provided to my colleagues and I during that closed-door meeting with the Managing Board of the cadastre last year, I am now even more concerned and convinced that something is seriously wrong when it comes to the manner in which the Minister and the Supervisory Board has dealt with the cadastre and its Managing Board for the past few years. This includes flagrant breaches of corporate governance principles where the Supervisory Board oversteps its authorities and attempts to assume the role of the Managing Board. Based on the answers provided by the Minister, I conclude that in addition to the questionable timing of the reappointments and regardless of the advice of the Corporate Governance Council, there appear to be conflicts of interest with at least 2 of the current members of the Supervisory Board. I also concluded that the Minister seems to have retroactively used a legal trick to allow what technically is a second reappointment or third appointment of members of the Supervisory Board, using this legal trick retroactively, annulling appointments and making another appointment allows government to reappoint Supervisory Board members and reappoint them infinitely. My next conclusion is that despite the projected negative financial ramifications for cadastre to hire a CFO and a COO, as mentioned in my letter of July 5th, the recruitment process has continued and will be finalized soon for the CFO. Madam Chair Lady, through you, in order to get more clarity on what exactly has been going on at the cadastre, and with reference to its articles of incorporation and my letter of July 5th, 2023, I hereby request the Minister via the Supervisory Board or otherwise to provide Parliament with the following information for clarification purposes. Through you, Madam Chair Lady, can the Minister of Finance please provide Parliament with the written legal advice based on which reappointments of the Supervisory Boards took place, the reasons there was a need to reappoint members of the Supervisory Board effective April 1st, 2023 in the first place, when it was well known that their term would end on March 30th, 2023, and the Minister, therefore, could and should have started the recruitment process in a timely manner, and also provide information, a written substantiation of the Supervisory Board to recruit a CFO and CEO, COO, and the opinion and advices of the Managing Director to the Supervisory Board on this matter. Regarding the new market vendors place, another thing that was pretty vague for me, the last we heard, there was just 2 signatures and something, 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 and then it was a bit vague for me. So I have a few questions here, specific questions. What steps has been undertaken thus far for the development of the new market vendors place, from site selection to the completion of the architectural drawings, obtaining a letter of intent, and commitment for the opening and launch? Has consultations been held with all existing vendors regarding the new marketplace vendors, the new marketplace? How many vendors will the facility accommodate? How many vendors have been approached? And what level of interest have they expressed in securing a location in the proposed venue? Regarding the committed tourism product improvement plan, another subject. What specific strategies or initiatives are included, and how do stakeholders plan to ensure its successful implementation and impact on enhancing the visitor's experience? Additionally, could the Minister, through you, Madam Chair Lady, provide details on the allocations of the budgeted 2.5 million guilders, including which activities it is committed to? Furthermore, how much of the capital expenditure, the CapEx then, was already committed and spent in 2023, specifying the projects involved? And lastly, Madam Chair, my last question for round 1, Madam Chair, is there a comprehensive plan in place for each project within the improvement plan? Thank you.
I have received the answer that was given to my colleague, MP La Cruz, in regards to the court cases, and I have seen that most of the court cases are in regards to justice. So my question is, what has the Ministry of Justice been doing to be able to settle the matters outside of court, seeing that there is a trend of cases being lost, resulting in a huge amount of extra cost that has to be paid to the opposing parties, seeing that in 2022, for example, it was an amount of $65,000, excuse me, and 2023 about $21,000. Also, I have seen different articles in regards to the Justice Bootcamp, but I haven't seen it on the budget. So what's the reason of that, seeing that it has been spoken about several times? Also, in reference to the interview, through you, Madam Chair, on Lady Grace, in regards to the question if the ministry has been working on the Criminal Procedure Code, I understood that it was mentioned that it's in the hands of Parliament at this moment. And then in regards to the punishments, because it was in regards to, if I'm not mistaken, the abuse cases and the punishment, and the punishment needs to be higher, and it was referred to as in the hands of Parliament. But the Criminal Procedure Code does not handle with punishment, so I would like to have clarification which part in connection to the punishment is in hands of Parliament, seeing that procedures don't deal with punishment. So if that can be clarified as well. Then I have questions through you, Madam Chair, in regards to the newly appointed Secretary General. I would like to know, based on what qualifications the Secretary General was appointed, because I did some research, and according to the research that I did, the function, you need to have a master's degree, or master's degree in law, or something connected to it on a universal level, or that in that field that person has proved themselves being equipped to do the job. Also 7 years management experience in law. So I would like to know, based on what that was done, and if that is the case, if that can be provided to Parliament. Were there others that applied for that position, and why the conclusion was made to choose the specific person, or was there only one person that applied? If that can be clarified as well, so that that's clear. And again, reasons, because I'm seeing that there a little commotion happening in regards to the Secretary General. Why I'm asking that question is because I got feedback out of the community that there were others that also were interested in applying, and they haven't received or weren't aware of that function being available. That's one. Other than that, I would like to know and get clarity on that so they can ask in the second round specific questions in regards to that. So it's nothing against who have been appointed, but just to seek the clarification in that matter.
Bearing Point, is there a court case to the tune of 20 million that Bearing Point, I'm asking the question, that Bearing Point will be levying against the government of St. Martin? If the answer to that is yes, can the minister explain the reason for that? Why would Bearing Point be bringing a monetary case against the government of St. Martin? What would be the reason of it? Also, Madam Chair, coming down to the end, the World Bank said that, the World Bank said that they will be taking up office space in the central bank here in St. Martin. I would like to know, Madam Chair, to the Honorable Minister of Finance, are they paying rent for that space in the central bank? And if they are paying rent, how much is that rent that they will be, or that they are paying for the space in the central bank? Now, Madam Chair, I don't have no questions for education. I don't have no questions for TIA. But I have a few questions for the Honorable Prime Minister. And Madam Chair, it's for educational purpose why I'm asking this specific question. And if you would permit me, Madam Chair, I would like to play a song or a video from the Member of Parliament in the Tweede Kamer, Geit Wilders. I would like to play it, Madam Chair, if I would get the permission for that.
Acknowledge that Islam is an influential ideology that fosters hatred and terror, and as a result is not compatible with the values of the Netherlands. Close our borders right away to asylum seekers and immigrants originating from Islamic countries. We should withdraw from the Schengen Agreement and reintroduce our own border controls. 3. Begin by dismantling Islamic institutions like mosques. Start by closing foreign-funded mosques, including those that receive funding from abroad and are under the authority of Diyanet, the Turkish Ministry of Religious Affairs, and not us. 4. Lock up anyone who threatens or uses violence or deport them from our country, and if necessary, take preventive action against those hundreds of supporters and thousands of sympathizers of the jihadist movement in the Netherlands. And 5, Chairman, request all schools, newspapers, media to display a Mohammed cartoon. In order not to provoke, but to demonstrate that we never give in to threats and violence, and that we proudly and firmly support our freedom. Finally, I have a message for all those Muslims in the Netherlands who do not respect our freedom, our democracy, and our core values. Those who consider the rules of the Quran more important than our secular laws, and there are many of them. 700,000 is revealed in the study by Professor Koopmans. And my message to them is get lost. Depart to an Islamic country, then you can enjoy Islamic rules. Those are their rules, but not ours. This is our country, not your country, but our country.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, Madam Chair, I had a discussion and it went into an argument because the individual was saying we are part of this. And I was telling them no. He's talking about the Netherlands. And the individual said, yeah, but we are part of the Netherlands. And I told him no. The reason why I'm asking this question, Madam Chair, through you, can the Honorable Prime Minister explain what's the difference between the Netherlands, Holland, and the Kingdom of the Netherlands? And which one of those states is St. Martin a part of? Because, Madam Chair, we have a mosque in this country, and we have Muslims in this country. And we are peaceful with everyone in this country. That's why I want to know, because I would want to believe when the Netherlands is being mentioned, they're talking about Holland. that part of Europe, not Aruba, Curacao, St. Martin, and the Best Islands. I would want to believe, Madam Chair, that we are part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. So that's why I'm asking the question. Can the Honorable Prime Minister explain what's the difference between Holland, the Netherlands, and the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and which one of those states is St. Martin a part of? Also, sticking with the Prime Minister, Madam Chair, this issue, with Telem is still sort of disturbing to me. So I want to ask the Prime Minister, Madam Chair, can the Honorable Prime Minister explain what was the reason for Telem buying cable TV? What was the reason for that purchase? And how much was that purchase, Madam Chair Lady? And if that purchase of cable TV was to acquire the infrastructure of cable TV, I would like to ask the Honorable Prime Minister, is the infrastructure of cable TV being used today? And if it's not being used today, how much is the loss on the books? Why I'm asking that question, Madam Chair, is because when I had a discussion with the Honorable Minister of Finance in purchasing Mullet Bay, he said, yes, it could be purchased, but we can't, if it's purchased, there must be a plan. And I agree that within a certain period of time, a production or whatever it takes can go into Mullet Bay where we can recoup monies because we can't have such a debt on our books. Now, Madam Chair, when I pass through that area, cable TV is closed down now. Nobody in that building, the building just there, the infrastructure, the satellites, everything is just there. I would want to know, is not a debt also on the books as well to Telem?
Basically, the information that I asked for was explained and described by line item by the Ministry of Finance, where they provided the budgeted versus the actual figures of personnel movements for the years that I requested, so 2020 to 2023. And what it is the formation book, so a function books exists basically for all the ministries for those years, except for, as we all know, the Ministry of Justice, because they just finalized it last year. So that information would be missing for the Ministry of Justice, obviously. But for the other ministries, the amount that they have, the amount of personnel that they need per the function book has to be compared with what they actually had budgeted for in the beginning of the year, what they had at the end of the year, and whether or not there was massive differences between what they really truly needed per accordance with the function book. So I hope that helps, Madam Chair Lady, with the Prime Minister. But again, nothing has changed from the initial information other than the fact that the Ministry of Finance was very helpful in providing detailed line items. That's why during the lunch break, I was able to get it from 2 different ministries that I know now it's complete for 3 out of 7 ministries. TEAT and ECYS provided the information, but it looks like it was omgekeerd, so it was swapped around with the actual columns that they needed to be in. So once I have that, then I can actually give the rest of my questions, because if I don't have the information of staff movements, my questions won't make any sense. So I need to have a full picture so that it could actually help visualization for everyone else to understand that if we are every year budgeting for 200 persons, but all we can afford is 100, that's what we need to see. And if those 200 persons are actually what we need per the function book, then we're going along quite fine. But what you see across the board for the ministries that are correct is that everyone needs more staff, but we can't afford more staff. And so I need the complete picture. That's why I said I will provide the full details, adapt it again, and hopefully the third time around, I can get the right information. Moving on to the Ministry of Finance. The Minister of Finance, Madam Chair Lady, mentioned that in the presentation that he had about a 58 million budgeted increase for 2024, if I understand correctly. And one of those items was the tourist tax of 9 million, which personally I don't agree with, that it's realistic, but I'll move on. Turnover tax 9 million, payroll tax 6 million. So the minister also mentioned that this is related to an increase in economic activities, so an increase in us making more money. But I just wanted to know if he can provide a little bit more information on what activity was additional that would be in alignment with maybe TEAT seeing an increase in a different industry. Because across the board, I know that a lot of people have been providing information in terms of retailers on Front Street in terms of their numbers being down. So I just wanted to really see what they base it on. Was it an anticipation, or was it really based on anything actual, considering we do have 3 months of 2024 already, and he did provide that information, but I need a link with the Ministry of TEAT. Like if there's something new that happened that we didn't think of, it was just a little bit extra information. Finalizing underground cabling project. I just want to know if this is ROMI or GB, because I didn't know that government had their own network, but I think once I get that answer, then maybe it'll explain a lot, maybe with the grid market discussion too. So I just want to know if we have a different underground cabling project that is just strictly GB or government, or if government is also contributing towards GB putting underground all of our electricity lines, the last remaining 10% I think that GB has. Also integrity training. This one was really, really nice for me too, to see on here as an accomplishment, because you know the really disturbing thing that happened in the last 4 months was people telling me about how annoyed they were about paying amounts to the Ministry of ROMI, and I was like, what do you mean paying amounts? And they were like, oh, well, we actually allegedly had to transfer or pay people in the parking lot in Galleys Bay. So when you hear integrity training, I just really want to know, like, if the integrity training is about what not to do, because when people are calling names of persons that work within a government ministry, and you're hearing such crazy details, it's alleged, and I'm just like, well, it's coming from across the board. It's coming from engineers. It's coming from actual persons that have come up to me and said that they had been asked to pay. So the integrity training, is it going to curb this? Thanks a lot.
Madam Chair, I'd like
MP Marlin, you are allowed an interruption.
It's based on MP, Madam Chair, through you. Madam Chair, through you. It's based on a comment made there by MP Weaver.
Still not on. Go slower. Go look closer.
Just one moment there, MP Marlin, we'll get that next. Now it is.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to interrupt the MP there. She made mention of 2 questions. Well, one statement, and I'd like to clarify. She says she's tired of hearing where persons in the community have to transfer payments to get building permits or pay in the parking lot on the front side, Galleys Bay. You know, that sounds a bit confusing. If someone have to pay for something, sounds like a bribe. Why would you transfer to make it seem that you are doing something? You know, sometimes we get, say, hey, say, they say, and then they live a life of their own, you know, when we're trying to build a community. Oh, yes, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Marlin. MP De Weaver, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't realize I said transfer, but this is what has happened, just so it's not hearsay. I've had persons come up to me and tell me that they're going crazy when they have to pay people in a parking lot in Galleys Bay. And this is not money that comes to the coffers of ROMI, the same ministry that is actually increasing their airport revenue generation that is coming in. So I want to know, the Ministry of ROMI mentioned integrity training. My question was very clear. Does it include not taking bribes? That's what my question is, and I think hopefully I clarified it. Moving right along onto ROMI, another person again, personal experience, coming up to me as a representative of the people and told me that they weren't aware that water rights were given to specific areas of water off of the bayside. So let me explain it properly. So when I go swim in the water by DV, in the area where you have the underwater museum, they were told you cannot come there. So and then they were like, how do you mean I can't swim there in this area? Because you have to pay $10. So I'm just wondering, for the Ministry of ROMI, if they gave water rights to the underwater museum, because the people who were swimming were told by someone on a boat, you cannot enter here unless you pay $10. So if that is the case, again, VROMI, the same ministry that actually increased, I believe, 3 million is what the minister said, about 3 million in the ERFPOC. So they're doing a really good job of increasing the revenue because they're enforcing, right, what people have to pay for ERFPOC. I just want to know if there's new areas that they can get extra revenue on, which is now in the water. And if that's the case, that's what happened this week. So I'm asking a question based on an actual experience. Now, let me see. I believe MP Gums was talking about constructions on Mullet Bay with containers, and it goes back to my same question of the release of new building code. If when you're doing building code, if we're allowed to have, if this building code includes somewhere containers, because I couldn't find it based on the 2 different versions I found online. And the reason I bring it up again, right, salt water is corrosive, okay? Everyone that live on St. Martin knows that when you have metal by your house, especially if you're on the water side, everything gonna rust. We have a big problem of rust. So if you're gonna bring containers on a bay side, I want to know what magic are you doing to make sure it don't rust, and then you actually going to be contributing more litter on the island when it starts eroding and you have corrosive metal. So again, it's just reiterating what MP Gowns is bringing up about Mullet Bay. Brommy also mentioned in the answers actually that we got about enforcement. So if you have to bear with me because I need to go in here to see where actually it was talking about, but we asked about sewage. MP Gums also mentioned about the $17 million sewage plant. And what it said was, VROMI will continue the enforcement of the applicable laws. Somewhere along that, I may have paraphrased, my apologies. But I would like to know if they can tell me the last time that VROMI issued a fine for somebody letting their septic or their sewage out. That's what I would like to know. Because they say enforcement of the applicable laws. They will continue the enforcement of the applicable laws.
An approved budget needs to go to the CFT. An approved amended budget needs to go to the CFT. So I would like to ask the Minister of Finance, was absolutely no consultation, formal or informal, held with the CFT about the draft budget now before us? And please don't repeat that. You don't have to. I know that. I'm asking, if notwithstanding that, if any consultation was had. And I ask this looking at the discussion regarding sale of government-owned shares, and in particular, Winair shares. I want to get back to the Minister of Finance on the matter of the Central Bank for Curaçao and St. Martin and the dividend policy of this bank, or the lack thereof. The last year that we received, according to what I received from the government of St. Martin, any type of dividend from the central bank was 2019, and it was an amount of 600,000 guilders. So when I now read that it's going to be on the basis of dividend payments that the government of St. Martin will make its contribution to the INYA debacle, then I asked myself, and asking myself, I asked the government and the Minister of Finance, what is the Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Martin going to do differently in order to make sufficient profit to yield a dividend that would be at least 2.3, 2.5 million guilders, when the last dividend of the bank was 600,000 guilders, according to the information from the minister himself, and that was in 2019. What are the big financial aspects of the Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Martin? So could that be provided? Could we get some insights into that since 2019, when they were able to pay 600,000 guilders, and the years thereafter when they could not? Was it that they were creating reserves? Was it that they didn't make any profit? And somewhere between the lines, reference in the elucidation to this budget is made to increasing banking fees. I want to know to how much? When? Is this going to start in 2027? So if that whole picture regarding the central bank and its contribution that will allow the government starting in 2027 to make its contribution to the INYA situation, or INYA solvability, let me call it that, then please present that. It's my request to the government. What increase in the banking license fee are we looking at in order for the central bank to make a profit so that they then can basically give, as the Dutchman would say, a sigaar uit eigen doos, money that they collect, and then they will say, government, we're paying you dividend. So they're going to increase, apparently, the banking license fees, make more money, and then say, but we're contributing to you, government, so that you can contribute to India solvability. So I would like that entire picture to be painted. And since the India outline agreement has been reached on a technical level, and the minister has provided some snippets of this agreement, can we receive the agreement? Madam Chair Lady, before and during the past campaign, there was this discussion about tax withholdings, tax deductions on pensions, on pension. Now, strictly speaking, pensions, the maximum amount of pension received as per the old age pension scheme of the SZV, if that is the only income the person has, there's no tax to be deducted from that amount if there's no other income the pensioner has. However, what has been happening is that if a pensioner has outstanding taxes from whether before, from whether a spouse, whatever have you, there used to be an agreement that the receiver would make with the SZV that this money would automatically be, the owed taxes, would automatically be deducted from the pension of the pensioner. When I learned of the government of Curaçao saying to their SVB that that was actually illegal, I didn't jump up and scream murder on St. Martin, but what I did do, I called the SZV and I asked them if that type of an arrangement between our SZV and the receiver, if you also had that in place on St. Martin. And the answer was yes. And the answer was also, MP, this is going to be stopped as of immediately. But the question was at the time, what happens then to the agreement that the pensioners were made to sign in order to make that deduction possible? Because that was an ongoing and running agreement. So I say all of this and give this elucidation to ask the Minister of Finance, and the Minister of Public Health, were you aware of this situation? One, and can you please inform me, as I was unofficially informed, that it is no longer happening, and that a solution was found for those agreements which were in existence between the pensioner and the SZV. I just want to know that that matter has really been cleared up.
Hope you enjoyed your highlights. Obviously, we couldn't fit 7 hours in just a couple of minutes that we had, but I think you received the gist of it, right? Good. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Until next week, Monday, where we're going to be coming to you from the St. Martin Carnival Development Foundation's spot for the month of April, which is the Joycelyn Arenal Festival Center? Village, yeah. Okay. I get used to it. Carnival Village. Which is the Carnival Village. All right. Bye-bye.